As a doctor, I get asked all the time about the magic number for health. Well, today, we're going to dive into a surprisingly specific one for sleep that could have a massive impact on your metabolic health.
Okay, let's just jump right in. A major new study is suggesting that this incredibly precise number is the best amount of sleep per night for our metabolic health. Not 7 hours, not 7.5, 7 hours and 18 minutes. I know that sounds crazy specific, right? But before you just write it off, let's actually look at the science behind it.
It's a fantastic question, and as you're about to see, the answer is way more complicated than just hitting one single number. This is really about finding a healthy range for your body, because getting it wrong, and that means too little or too much, can have some very real consequences.
So, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll unpack the science behind this so-called magic number. Then, we'll explore what I call the Goldilocks zone for sleep. We're also going to tackle that tricky weekend catch-up sleep and decode this thing called social jet lag. And then, at the end, I'll give you a straightforward prescription for better sleep and better health.
All right, so where on earth did they get this number? 7 hours and 18 minutes. Well, it comes from a huge study that looked at the sleep patterns and metabolic health of nearly 25,000 people. What they were really zeroing in on was the link between how long people sleep and something called insulin resistance, which is a key warning sign for type 2 diabetes.
And this right here is the key health issue we're talking about. Think of insulin kind of like a doorman for your cells. Its job is to let sugar in so it can be used for energy. But with insulin resistance, that doorman gets, well, lazy. He doesn't open the door as well, and sugar starts to pile up in your bloodstream. This is a huge risk factor for type 2 diabetes, so managing it is absolutely critical.
Okay, so how does sleep fit into all this? Well, it turns out the relationship between your sleep and your insulin resistance is a real Goldilocks situation. It's all about finding the amount that is just right.
Now, this part probably isn't a huge shock to you. We've known for a long time that not getting enough sleep, less than about 7 hours a night on a regular basis, can really mess with your hormones. It can jack up your cortisol, that's your stress hormone, and it can lower your leptin, which is the hormone that tells your brain you're full. That whole hormonal mess makes it way harder for your body to manage blood sugar.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. The research shows that consistently sleeping too long can also be a problem. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up, thinking, hey, more sleep is always better, right? But as we're about to see, that's just not the case.
And this is what the scientists found, this sort of upside-down U-shape in the data. So as people slept more, their insulin sensitivity got better and better, but only up to a certain point. And that sweet spot, the very top of that curve, was right at 7 hours and 18 minutes. After that, sleeping more was actually linked to worse metabolic health. Wild, right?
This brings us to a question that I get constantly in my practice. Doc, can I just catch up on sleep over the weekend? It's a tempting idea, but given what we just learned about the dangers of too much sleep, does it actually work? It's a great question, and the answer might really surprise you. It turns out whether that weekend lie-in is good for you or bad for you depends entirely on how much sleep you got during the week.
Okay, let's break this down, because it's super important. If you are genuinely sleep-deprived during the week, then yes, getting an extra hour or two of sleep on the weekend can actually help improve your insulin sensitivity. But, and this is the big but, if you're already getting enough sleep, or if your catch-up is way over the top, like more than 2 extra hours, it can totally backfire and make things worse. So if you're one of those people consistently hitting 7 or 8 hours a night, that weekend lie-in might be doing more harm than good.
This weekly whiplash between your sleep schedules isn't just a bad habit. It actually has a scientific name, and it's a really key concept for understanding a lot of our modern health problems. So here's the bottom line. Your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm, it absolutely loves consistency. But our social clock, which is driven by work alarms during the week and then freedom on the weekends, often forces this massive shift. And what that does is create a kind of jet lag, and it messes with not just your sleep, but your metabolism, your mood, even how well you think.
And listen, this is not some rare condition we're talking about. The research shows that over half of us are dealing with some form of social jet lag. This constant yo-yoing of our sleep schedule is linked to making poorer food choices, being less physically active, and having a higher risk for heart and metabolic problems. So if you find yourself craving junk food after a weekend of sleeping in, yeah, social jet lag might be the culprit.
Okay, so we've looked at all the evidence. What's my prescription for you? Well, the good news is you don't need some magic pill to fix your sleep. It really all boils down to 3 simple, consistent actions.
The most important thing to take away from all this is that consistency is king. Don't get obsessed with hitting 7 hours and 18 minutes on the dot. Instead, just focus on creating a stable, reliable routine. Think of it this way. Your metabolism is like a finely tuned instrument. It performs best with a steady rhythm, not the chaos of binge sleeping.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Instead of seeing your weekend sleep as a time to repay some kind of debt, try to see it as a chance to reinforce a healthy, consistent routine. It's really time we all started looking at sleep, not just as rest, but as one of the most powerful tools we have for managing our health for the long haul. So what's one small change you can make this week to get your sleep schedule back on track?